Welcome everybody to this episode of Beers with Bill. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome Matt Boismier from Farm League Brewing. Matt, welcome to Beers with Bill. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, doing just great. Which beer are we going to start with tonight?
All right, so tonight we're going to start with the Holler Lager. That's our little short can here with the red lettering. So Holler Lager is an American style lager, 4.8%. We tried to go on the lighter end with this one, just to be kind of our everyday hockey bag, mowing the lawn, baseball beer. So 4.8% on the lighter side for craft lagers for sure. Made with Pilsner malt, a little bit of flaked corn in there for a touch of sweetness. Just nice, light, crispy, crushable. We really tried to make a craft lager that wasn't overly malty. I can find that sometimes people make a lager in the craft brewing world and it can still have a little bit of bite to it, a little bit of malt to it, which isn't a bad thing, but we really wanted to center in on something that's super pale, super drinkable, really light, and kind of anyone can walk into the shop and be pointed in that direction and not be disappointed. It can, fit the bill for craft beer drinkers. They're looking for a light lager, but it can also fit the bill for someone that's a domestic drinker starting to switch over, wanting to try something different. So that's Holler Lager for you. So we can give that a start. Yeah, you'll notice a decently high carbonation, very light and pale and clear. A touch of sweetness to it from the flaked corn, just to kind of bring it in that almost domestic style taste for people. Wanted to make kind of our craft version of what our brewmaster Mike likes to say is his favorite domestic beer. A Coors Banquet's really a brewer's beer in the back of the brewery sometimes. So want to make something that could match up with a style of beer like that, but also could stand on its own as a craft beer made with proper ingredients, milled in-house, everything like that. So enjoy a nice, light, easy drinking lager to start.
So there's four of you there. There's you, Tyler, Mike, Colin. How did the four of you know it was time to start a brewery?
So that's a good question because the three of us, Mike, Colin, and I, had been people in the beer industry for some time, between 5, 6, 7 years. Tyler hadn't been, but he was interested in it and wanted to be a part of it. And being a friend, he was discussing it with us for a matter of a year to months. And I don't really think there's ever a time to know 100% for sure. It was kind of like the stars aligned in a funny way between having this idea, doing some home brewing, recipe testing over a matter of months to a year, just to have a little bit of fun and see what we could come up with, to starting a brand that we started to believe in and think could be something that could catch on and that represents us. And then really just, putting it into practice. And with, the pandemic starting, with our jobs slowing down in the capacities that they were, and with, as much as it sucks to say, certain other businesses, having to sell off equipment or change locations or something like that, opening up the possibility to even going into a place like where we are now, we're using the equipment we are. So it was a bit of a, we'd worked on it for a while and felt confident that we had found something that we really liked. We had the time to start really digging into it. And then, the stars aligned with location, equipment, and just willingness to jump right in because, it might be a tough time to do it, but what better time than when not too much else is going on and you can really put your whole heart into it to start up. I say that then maybe now would have some different thoughts, but yeah, so you never really know, but it felt like the right time, because we thought enough was enough joking around. If we're going to do it, we might as well give it a shot.
I take it, and the stars did align for you guys because you managed to pick local equipment up, and to look at the former, Grand River Brewing location being available was quite serendipitous, wasn't it?
It's truly unbelievable. It was the timing, how it happened with the equipment, the buy of that, the needing to move that within the month that it was purchased, and a building that had the space for that equipment, let alone a historic brewing space that was, known and used for many years, 10, 15 years as a craft brewery. It was kind of like throwing a needle through a target, downrange, but it all lined up. And, again, you don't know when it's the right time necessarily, but sometimes, things line up in such a way, you just got to grab it and go, or, there's not going to be a next time, maybe.
Well, you guys certainly grabbed it and went with it. What was it like the first time you walked into the old Galt Knife building?
It was crazy because when we first kind of thought this all up, well, originally there was an idea to do it on a farm. There was a bit of a longer standing plan, but when things didn't work out with that, the thought was a smaller industrial kind of facility style brewery, much like a barn cat or a counterpoint or something like that, like a base level place to start to brew, to get some equipment that's professional, but not of a gigantic scope, and just kind of start from there, square one, and slowly move up. The difficulties with that is as you make more beer and need more equipment, that doesn't get any easier. Obviously, space and equipment is a huge commodity in brewing, and the more you have and not having to gain more, to buy more, the better in some ways. But when we walked into that building, it was unlisted at the time. We were looking at industrial facility in Paris. We were looking within a small range around the Tri-Cities where we wanted to call home. And the real estate agent we were talking to brought up this building. It wasn't listed at the time, and we went in and took a look at it. And I hadn't even been there when it was operational as Grand River before. I'd passed by before, but I'd never been in. And we just thought it was like truly amazing. It's a big building. In the back, there's 3 different rooms that are kind of partitioned off from each other. A brew house room, a fermenter room, and a packaging room, all interconnected. So that's like such a perfect layout. It had the great bones of a brewery. The tap room space is phenomenal and quirky, but beautiful in its own way. So, once we saw it, we definitely knew if we were able to, we wanted to kind of pull the trigger and call it home. Although, with a building of that age, there's no short of quirkiness and fix-ups that need to be done. But, we wanted to do it grassroots, ground up, and do whatever we could, and kind of get our hands on everything. So that was the first thought when we walked in. It sure was beautiful, but needed a bit of a tune-up for sure.
Yeah, I guess the chat there, one of the people tuning in said it's a great and amazing tap room that you have.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. It was, the space was great. The windows are awesome. It definitely needed a couple things: ceiling, floor, bar, a proper draft system that was never there before. But those are small things in general to just such like a wide open, beautiful space in such an old building with the brick all around it and everything like that. So we were super lucky to be able to call that home now for the tap room. A lot of room for events, a lot of room for tables. So we're just really looking forward to being able to use it to its full capacity at some point soon.
Katie wants to know if you're going to have a pinball machine.
I would love to. Yes, I would love to. That would be sweet. We have that old shuffleboard table that was there from the Grand River days that people seem to like. So that's in the tap room currently. I, play with that in the off hours of lockdown right now. But I know people have asked about a pool table, a dartboard, which can take up a little bit of space and be kind of loud. But a pinball machine would be cool. If anyone sees a nice vintage affordable pinball machine, send it my way.
I hear you on that. Originally, you guys thought about being on an on-farm brewery.
Yeah.
But that kind of fell through with the zoning. So
yeah.
Because I take that because that's a very complex thing to get done in a rural setting. So But
Yeah, it was interesting because that's kind of where the ethos of the brand started with Colin McKinnon, my business partner. His family had a farm just on the outskirts of Cambridge there that we originally wanted to plan the brewery on. The issues being septic systems aren't ideal for brewing, and there are workarounds, but they can be expensive and time consuming and just a bit of a constraint. The zoning was one thing, but the zoning was because of, I guess, an ecological study that's going on in that area that his uncle, who owned the farm, had agreed to years prior and not really disclosed. So there was a number of different things that it was going to kind of delay the project for a number of years. And again, going back to not knowing it's the right time, but the stars kind of aligning, it didn't really feel like um, it was a smart idea to wait if we had the passion and the wherewithal to start and get it done. We wanted to move forward in that. So unfortunately, the farm didn't work out, but that's okay. We were able to end up with the building that we have and are super happy with it and all the work that we've been able to do over there. So yeah, that's just one of those things that sometimes something falls apart and something either the same or better can kind of come together on the other end.
yep. So I'm curious, you find the old Grand River Brewing location, you get the equipment. What was it like that almost year time frame before you finally got everything turned on?
It was hectic, difficult, crazy. I suppose like we're all handy enough people, but getting a brewing system together is a whole different world of multiple contractors, month-long planning, transportation of the equipment piece by piece, and seeing what you can set up and what can happen. So it was crazy. It was hectic. It was starting up. Your startup business, you have some investment, but at this point, everything's getting dumped into the construction project, and there's no revenue at that point. Like you're a brewery, the product is to make beer, and before you can do that, it's difficult to make a buck. So it's definitely not too fun seeing funds drain into a construction project, and then even when it's finished in the beer industry, it's not return right away. It's you have to create a product, brew it, can it, or what have you, and then finally sell it. So nerve wracking and just how long it took to get that all set up. It's not an easy job. It's sizable equipment. It's an old building that needed a lot of things revamped as well. Although we were lucky to have some things in place like trench draining and some of the electrical, among some other things. But essentially, it was just months of every day jumping in any way we could help, making sure things are going right with the contractors that we partnered up with, and then just doing our best to organize, transport equipment, deal with the city for licensing, liquor licensing, manufacturing licensing, to have them come in and check everything out. So every day it was a little bit different, a little bit hectic, but just a lot of work for several months getting that all put together.
Now, I read an interview that you guys did shortly after they announced that you announced you were going in the location, and there was a lot of not the word to put it, but felt like, oh man, I'm junior, because there was already a brewery in there. And I'm wondering if now that you've got everything done, do you guys feel like Farm League has kind of claimed that space as their own?
I definitely do. Yeah. When I know exactly the interview you're talking about, and coming into that space was interesting just because, they had been there since 2005 or 2006. One of the, I know in the region, the oldest brewery, not here in the province, but one of the kind of OG craft breweries in that region. And I know that they had their ups and downs and things changed with them quite a bit. But I feel like in Galt specifically, it definitely had an impactful footprint that people liked, remembered, wanted to still be there or missed. And that still carries through even to today when folks come in for the first time and tell stories about what happened there before, their friends that they had over there, the different beers. So I definitely don't feel like there's a junior type feeling, but there is, that place was important to people in the community, and we wanted to make sure we showed it respect. and built our own thing, but understood that that was an important part of the area and, the early days of craft brewing in Ontario. So, definitely wanted to show respect, definitely wanted not to alienate the folks that liked that place before and still wanted to call the building home, and just do what we could to, bring all those people back, expand in a way that was fun for us and the craft beer community in the area, and just keep working on that. So definitely feel like we've made it our own with the renovations, with the customer clientele that we've been able to have over there, and with the beer and the branding as well. But people will always think of that place as Grand River in some ways, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an awesome story, and it's an awesome part of the building's history and craft beer in the area.
I'm curious, which is the second beer you want to do tonight?
The second beer, we'll do the Kolsch, the big ticket Kolsch. So going along the trend of kind of lighter to heavier, I would give a little talk about some of the other beers we've made. I chose the specific 4 this evening because they're somewhat of our core beers. We don't necessarily have a core beer lineup yet because we've kind of only been around for a couple months, and that takes some time to dial in and know what you're going to make, moving forward for a long time. But these are 4 beers we really cared about and that we thought represented us well. So these are the ones I chose, and they have kind of a plethora of styles between the 4 of them. But lately we've been making a lot of dark beers. We have some pastry stouts coming out, which is kind of our first foray into that. We've done some different takes on Pilsners, a handful of IPAs, among some other stuff. So these 4 are a good kind of representation of what we like to make, but there's plenty more at the brewery. I think we've run through about 20 different beers at this point. Did lots of one-off brews, lots of seasonals, lots of collaborations with other local businesses and breweries. So if you're ever interested in the other stuff we have, it's all on the web. But I thought these 4 were a nice start, nice introduction for us. So.
Okay. Everyone's giving you great accolades in the chat line right now for the beers.
Lovely. Love to hear it.
Yeah. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the Kolsch, and then I'll catch some of the questions that have popped up.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. So the Kolsch, we tried to emulate the Kolsch style lager ale from Cologne, Germany. I know it's nothing groundbreaking or new for kind of the Ontario craft beer industry. There's a fair shake of Kolsch's out there, but it's one of our favorite styles, and we wanted to kind of do it our way. If you don't know exactly what a Kolsch is, it's like I said, Cologne, Germany. It's a style of beer that originated there. It's a lagered ale, so it's an ale yeast, but it's fermented as a lager, so cold stored and lagered for a fair amount of time, which really clears it up, smooths it out, and makes it kind of more like a crispy, lighter tasting ale. So kind of the best of both worlds between an ale, which has a little bit more nuanced flavor, a little bit sweeter, and a lager, which has that nice, crisp, clean, easy drinking kind of feeling to it. So we think we got both out of it. It's really, really flavorful. 5.2% Kolsch, which has been, really a bit of a fan favorite at the brewery. One of our better selling ones out of the bottle shop. So really happy how this one turned out, light and refreshing, but flavorful and unique, and kind of carries through some of the European influences that we all, and especially Mike Mayo, our brewer, loves to show through our beers. So hope you like it. Hope it's nice and smooth and easy drinking, but flavorful and nuanced as well. And this one is one we really, really like. So I think it could maybe be a bit lighter on the next batch. We've made 3 batches of this now and tweaked it a little bit each way, but there's definitely a good flavor punch there, and it's not too overwhelming. But that's the big ticket.
Yeah, but that's normal for a brewery starting out, that you've got to find that sweet spot of where you want to make that beer to taste.
For sure. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll
And
take months to really dial that perfect batch in, and then you get that perfect batch. And it's the nature of the beast, but you might never get that exact perfect batch ever again. Funny enough, when I was at Collective Arts, I remember there was this one batch of Rhyme and Reason they made that just was like head and shoulders above any of the other ones I ever tried, and it never returned to that exact same form. Although if it was me on that day or that week, or if the beer was exceptionally better for whatever reason, but hey, it's an imperfect science, especially in the craft world, and that's kind of what's
so one of the participants picked up your lore and thought it was absolutely fantastic. She's curious, why did you decide to make that beer?
so we decided to make the Black IPA. I was actually when we hired a brewer. So it's the four of us and Cassandra Tran, who's our assistant brewer. It's a lot of equipment back there. When we were running, there's a lot of canning and a lot of brewing to be done. So Cassandra, who was friends with Mike previously, and we all knew in some capacity, um, came over from Waterloo Brewing, wanting to be a little bit more creative and really dive into the craft side of the craft beer world, not just kind of doing the motions of the job for something that's already fully set up. So this was her recipe, her first beer that she did fully solo in the driver's seat, and it's something she had homebrewed and been proud of before, and people had really liked. And given the seasons were changing at that time, it was kind of the perfect time to have a dark beer with a little bit more pizzazz to it. So yeah, we just gave her the keys to the brewery to make that in whatever way she wanted to, and I think she absolutely killed it. I think it's a fun, unique style that you don't see every day, fits with the season, and has something that's a little bit different to it as well.
Somebody else is curious what yeast you decided to use when you brewed the Kolsch.
Oh, geez, I don't. Right off the top of my head, I am not 100% sure what yeast we used for the Kolsch. So, if they want me to send them a DM with that afterwards, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Now, further back, and I missed it. People are curious, where did the name Farm League come from?
So the name Farm League was at first a bit of a play on words, being that a farm league is like a lower level league, almost like a beer league or like a triple A to major league type of place. Something for kind of the up and comers or the grinders or the people that never quite made it all the way to the professional league before. In a way, I feel like that just kind of represents us as a team and craft beer as what it is in general. People generally coming from humble beginnings and trying to make a business of a passion and something they love, and kind of using whatever resources they have in front of them to do it. And those might not be perfect, but you have the passion and the willingness to try your best. And then also having it had been on a farm, it would have kind of had that double play to it, being guys that all kind of play farm league, men's league, lower level league sports in our spare time as well, was just kind of a natural thing that made sense. But it was mostly that play between being on a farm and then also being kind of like an up and coming underdog type story type brand. And then when it switched away from the farm, we just really still liked the name. We still thought it fit, even with that location, being old and being what it is. We loved the name. We thought it represented us, and we just stuck with it.
On a personal level, what music would we find on your playlist right now?
Right now, you would find some kind of maybe the newest Sheepdogs EP that's very summertime kind of rock and roll. Just pulled me out of the -15 kind of frigid temperatures that we've been feeling the past couple days. So probably something like that, cruising around, dropping off the odd kegger case around town.
Okay. And I'm curious, how do you stay grounded through everything that you've gone through in the last year and a bit?
I mean, I feel like everything we've gone through in the past year and a bit has, just grounded us in general. You know what I mean? Like none of these things are kind of our choice when it comes to how we're able to sell, what we're allowed to do out there in the community right now with, the issues with COVID and lockdowns and stuff like that. So it's definitely a grounding experience knowing that, you have all these possibilities to move on in the future, but just having to stay, within the reins that we're allowed to. So I don't think there's ever been a time to go from anything but being grounded and scrappy and humble and just wanting to do absolutely our best, but understanding that it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, and we just got to keep with it and work hard. But yeah, the whole experience in itself has been kind of a humbling, grounding experience, just to know that you can make beer, you can set up a brewery, and it doesn't happen in a snap, and some things are out of your control. So you just gotta stay confident, keep at it, do what you love to do, and try your best.
I'm gonna say, starting a brewery it takes twice as long and 3 times as much money as you anticipated.
That's what they said beforehand, and boy, is it true. I will tell you that. If anyone's considering it, the time and the resources necessary to create. I like to think of it as, it's a manufacturing facility, which is its own thing that needs to be created and dealt with and treated properly. It's also a pseudo bar tap room, which has its own rules and regulations and needs to be staffed and treated properly as well. And then it's also distribution, which has all its own, difficulties and different things about it. So it's kind of it's a 3-in-1 job and project. So definitely takes a little bit more than you expect walking into it, unless you've done it before, I'm sure.
I hear you on that. What's been the hardest hurdle to overcome?
2 things. Definitely the glycol chiller. That was a difficult piece of equipment to get over to the brewery. This was one of the things that set us back, a couple months. It was, so our equipment that we have in the brewery, we got from the Kitchener Aberg location. So they shut down. I'm not sure if they're back up and running right now, but they're not brewing in that location anymore. They had 2 10-barrel fermenters, 3 20s, and 3 40-barrel fermenters all crammed into that location somehow. I don't know how they set it up, but they had it in there. But pulling everything out of there was difficult. Getting it in the brewery was difficult. But the glycol chiller itself was on the roof of the next building over. And they had glycol, like George Fisher piping running all the way through to their system. So what we had to do was get the city to approve us shutting down Victoria in Kitchener and having a crane pull it off of the roof and put it onto a flatbed and then drive it back to the brewery. And that was just such a difficult process, working with the city, working with the region, working with the crane riggers and getting it transferred over there and hooked up properly. It was, it was Tetris at the best of times, and there was about 5 different entities working on it. So for one piece of equipment, it was an extremely difficult time getting that going. And I see a question just pop up: would buying a new one be cheaper or easier? It'd probably be easier, I would imagine. It wouldn't be cheaper because it's one of those pieces of equipment that's so specialized and essential. But it's one of those things that would probably be ordered from a company somewhere in Texas that would have to build it and ship it up there to meet the specs. So definitely would take some time. Silly expensive though. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, they're really expensive. They're tough to come by. So it was really an essential component to the brewery, and it was just unfortunate how it was set up that way. But we got it done, and that was one of the scary moments. But we got past it. And then the other thing that's been a huge hurdle is really just recently. Like I maybe it was naive of me to think, but the length of time these rolling lockdowns have gone on has made things really difficult to plan for. So that's just like an ongoing long hurdle, I suppose. So we're working on that. We're doing our best, but just not knowing what to expect can make things really difficult to plan how much beer you need to make, know where you're going to be sending it, know, if you're going to be going out and talking to other local businesses, trying to create a partnership, or if you're going to be, at the brewery selling beer at the bottle shop. So that's probably an ongoing hurdle, but the glycol chiller is a little bit funnier. So
That sounds like it was quite the journey.
no doubt.
Someone's curious as to the cost of time to document and do the paper push at the city.
It took, it was a couple of weeks, of the four of us just trying to do our best to get it figured out. Being our first time getting a project like this underway, some inexperience definitely showed in who to go to and how to do it. I even showed up to City Hall one day myself, knocking on the door, seeing if I could go in and talk to someone and get, a plan in place of how to actually deal with these things, because the online resources aren't very easy. So it took a couple of weeks to be calling and emailing back and forth with the powers that be, with the city and region, and kind of being passed around to different folks. But it's just one of those things, like first year university, where you feel like people are getting weeded out if they're not trying hard enough. You just got to keep at it, and eventually things will turn around. So luckily enough, we got things figured out, but it was a long process, and it's never fun. Working with certain entities that have their day-to-day jobs, and obviously it's not for them to decide a small business is worth pushing through or doing anything different. It's just the way things go. But we're lucky enough to keep working on it and get that all settled.
Yeah, it can be that way. What's the third beer we're going to talk about tonight?
Third beer, we'll go with the Leaf American Farmhouse Ale. So the Leaf American Farmhouse Ale was kind of Mike's baby to a degree. It was something he homebrewed for a long time to try and get never perfected, but in the way he liked it. What Leaf is it's a take on a Belgian style saison. So it's Belgian yeast, which is the farmhouse ale aspect of it, being a Belgian style ale. The American part comes from the traditionally, the hops traditionally used in kind of like a hazy, juicy IPA, which originated in the East Coast of the US. We tossed in there and did a pretty heavy dry hop on this saison. So it's somewhere of a hybrid between a Belgian style saison and, an American East Coast style IPA. I think the Belgian kind of tastes, kind of the bubblegum candy apple, kind of peppercorn shines through more than like the citrusy stone fruit from the hops. But it's all in there to make kind of a unique take on a Belgian classic, and just something that we wanted to make, because we really, really love the home brews Mike had, and thought it would be something kind of unique to us. So that's the origin of that beer. So for this one, it's fun to make. It smells great in the brewery when you make saisons. I love kind of the Belgian or like German yeast that people would traditionally use in like a Weiss beer. Really smells banana bready and like clovey and bubblegum and all of that. So I love a brew day of this beer, and I just think it's unique and kind of special, and something that's a little bit different, and might not be the regular thing you see in contemporary Ontario craft brewing, but nothing wrong with something a little bit different that you can't quite put your finger on.
Farmhouse ales are a definite unique style, that's for sure.
Yeah, they can range like just the flavors, that the complex flavors you can get with those beers can range all over the place. So it's almost different with every one you have. It's never like, that standard beer that you're gonna have one and be, can imagine what the next one's going to taste like from the next person. They're all kind of different in their own way. So that's what's fun about those ones for sure.
Yeah, and I really like that bubblegum peppercorn combination.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying about the smell when you're brewing them in the brewery.
Yeah, my personal favorite style of beer, which is funny because we haven't made it yet, but we have plans to make it, is like a classic German Weiss beer. So when I first started in the beer industry, I worked with a company and we had a small beer agency where we imported Weinstefan from Germany, which is known as the oldest commercial brewery in the world. And they make, in my opinion, I haven't had every German Weiss beer in the world, but in my opinion, the best one I've had, and generally rated the highest as well. And I fell in love with that style of beer. And we also sold Le Trappe, which is Dutch, but Belgian Trappist style, and really fell in love with that style of beer as well. The triples, the quads, and the Belgian, kind of like a sweeter candy kind of bubblegum Belgian style beers. So I love both those styles. So Leaf kind of represents one of those, and we haven't done the German Weiss style yet, but that is my favorite. So I'm looking forward to doing that sometime soon.
I'm just laughing because the question that popped up, Derek was late joining us. He's curious what your role is at Farm League, which is, we haven't even discussed that other than a co-founder.
I was cleaning up a slushy disaster. So is that a slushy beer disaster, or is that a slushy?
Yeah, one fell out of the fridge and just went.
Oh no! The hand grenades.
Over my wife in the kitchen and the fridge.
Good thing it was at least in the fridge, because you could always be worse than that.
I had to wipe down every single item in the fridge, the cabinets, and my wife.
Been there. I've been there. No, my role at Farm League. So I started with the four of us, and we all have somewhat distinct roles, but also wear all of the same hats in some capacity. Myself, I'm, I guess, leading the charge when it comes to branding and sales and marketing and those types of things, where Colin, one of the other co-founders, just kind of came up with the idea, banded us all together, and brought it all to the forefront. Mike Mayo is our brewmaster and has come up with the recipes, and then Tyler has dealt more with the construction and investment side of things. But we all kind of cross over in every possible way. We all help Mike with the brewing. I like to call us all the unskilled laborers and assistant brewers of Farm League, because he's not the one shoveling out the mash, I'll tell you that much. That's always the fellas. So we kind of do a little bit of everything, but I guess if you were to segment me off versus the rest of the guys, I would be more so on the sales, marketing, branding side of things, although we do kind of all do things. I bartend at the tap room sometimes. I'll work at the retail shop. I'll help Mike with brewing. We'll all work on the canning line together, or sometimes you just got to sit there and label like 50 cases of beer. So a little bit of everything, but yeah, that's kind of the story.
Standard startup. You do everything because that's what you have to do.
Yeah, no other way to do it.
So I'm curious, because you're new in the game of being a craft brewer. How do you guys decide what to brew?
We just kind of all sit down and have a couple beers and discuss what we like to see in craft beer, what we're good at making, or something that would just be fun to do. So we'll have like our big whiteboard over a couple months and kind of try and plug things in. There's a number of things that go into it, and there's no science of how we choose beers, because it's kind of just a bit off the cuff at this point. When we first started, these four beers are the first four that we chose to make because we wanted to have a really nice, clean, drinkable lager. We love a Kolsch style. We loved a farmhouse or a saison style. And then we really wanted to try our hand at, a hazy, juicy style IPA as well. So those were kind of, the first four we wanted to make, because the stuff we like to drink, the stuff we wanted to see made, the stuff we wanted to make. And we just thought that was a good starting for to line up. post that, it's been about seasonality. It's been about ingredients that are out there. It's been about just sitting down and like I said, deciding on what would be fun or what we'd like to see out there, and just scheduling it out in a way where something doesn't get overloaded, like 5 IPAs in a row, or you have all your tanks full of pilsners, so you can't fit any more beer in there because they have to sit in there for 2 months or something like that. So just trying to kind of schedule things in a way where you get a good variety of things, but really focusing on the stuff that we like to drink, the stuff that we've been influenced by and are passionate about, and then trying our hand at whatever contemporary Ontario style is the flavor of the month, if we think that's going to be fun, or a cool seasonal ingredient is available, and kind of building something around that.
Don't look at the chat line. They're having a fight over IPAs.
Okay, let me close that, because that's a classic one right there. No one's gonna win that fight.
What do you see that's new and exciting in the craft beer industry right now?
So I don't know how new this is, but it's exciting to me because it's stuff that I care about, and that's seeing a little bit more time and hype spent on some interesting German pilsners, some long fermented lagers, some Belgian styles. Like I know there was that, I think it was Godspeed and Tooth and Nail that put out that 4-pack of those of Belgian Abbey beers that were really, really cool to see actually move and people buy them and be interested and have fun with them. And I know, we're not moving away from the standard, or I shouldn't say standard, but like popular, like super juicy, super hazy, single and double IPAs, fruited sours, and all that. All those things are great, but I do like to see some more time spent on the classics and some more people interested in picking them up and giving them the time of day in the craft world, as well as the import world. So that's been fun to see a couple people throw their hat in the ring of that type of stuff, and we hope to be doing that as well as having fun with the classic styles in Ontario as well. So just seeing a little bit more, European influence, a little bit more time taken with some long fermented beers instead of the quick turnaround IPAs, and making some classics in your own way and having fun with that, and seeing people kind of connect and buy that stuff is awesome to see.
Who's your favorite craft beer bar restaurant in the region?
Well, I love me some Bent Elbow. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely.
I like scooting over to see what Harold has on the menu for whatever day it might be, and grabbing some of their unique pickups or some of their cool craft stuff they have on the go, and sitting there on the stool and having a beer with Harold. And then you order a Polish sausage or something, and then he's like, all right, gotta go make that, and gets up and goes and fires up the grill. So that's kind of a unique experience. It's definitely its own one in a million kind of spot with a great community, awesome beer, good food. There's tons of great spots in town. I've become good friends with the folks over at Arabella as well. Great curated beer list, obviously, really nice folks, good food, super clean, like relaxed, cool atmosphere. We did a collaboration with those guys as well as with Good Lot out of Caledon with our wet hop beers. So we got all the fresh hops on harvest day from Good Lot, brought them to the brewery, and then the fine folks at Arabella came by and helped us pick all those fresh hops for 6 to 8 hours to get enough to toss in the beer. So they've been great folks, and that's always a fun place to visit. But there's something special about the Bent Elbow for me, just being one of those old school spots with something that you can't quite put your finger on.
Absolutely. There certainly is with Harold and the crew there.
Mm-hmm.
So that must have been quite the experience, going out and picking fresh hops.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. There's a video on our Instagram of the whole experience, which is cool to watch. It's about 5 minutes long, so if anyone doesn't have us there, go check it out. But bright and early, drive the truck over to Good Lot. They had some hops, Vujvadina hops, which I hadn't experienced before, but generally, I guess a Bavarian kind of style area and style of hop, generally used in lagers, which for a wet hop beer I found different and unique. Because in my experience, mostly when I was at Collective Arts, they'd either do some form of an IPA with a bunch of the fresh hops, which seems counterintuitive, but depending on the style of hops you have, or a wheat beer we did before with it as well, but I hadn't seen something like a wet hop pilsner. So that's what we did with those. It was the right type of hop, but boy, does that take a while, and does the fresh hops don't go near as far as those pelletized hops. That's for sure. You can pick all day and you never quite get there, but it was a fun time and it was unique.
Yeah, there's something though about being in a hop field when it's ready to be picked. The aroma is right there.
They're awesome. No, it was super fun, and fingers smell for the rest of the day. But if it smells like beautiful floral hops, there's nothing wrong with that. Reminds me of something else sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. So let's take a moment and talk about the last beer tonight.
All right. So the last beer is our Fun Police. Call it, a New England style IPA, I guess would be, the way to describe it. It's kind of just a not overly hazy, not overly juicy, but hazy, juicy style of IPA. It was something that we wanted to make that could be sessionable in the way that you can have one or two of them, 6.1%. So it's not crazy high when it comes to ABV, but it's really packed in there with those, stone fruit, pineapple, citrusy, a little bit of spice to it. So it lies somewhere in that central to East Coast style IPA. Didn't want to go crazy with it, being that it was kind of a flagship IPA that we wanted to make available for anyone. People, getting into IPAs for the first time, people that just love, something that they can enjoy the pineapple and citrusy flavors of a classic East Coast IPA, and just kind of reel it in a little bit and make sure it's something that is tasty, fun to make, fun to drink, kind of hits all the notes, and it's something that can be kind of there for everyone. So we've done a fair number of IPAs. This one still stands out to me to be like a good classic standard rendition on this style of IPA. So super happy with it. People tend to love the name, and it's just a solid classic IPA. So hope you guys enjoy this one as well. I think depending on the cans you got, it might have been the brand new batch that came out just the other week. So yeah, the Fun Police IPA. I mean, say what you will about IPAs, but I think we all love a nice standard hazy, juicy, delicious, fruity, citrusy, pineapple-y kind of IPA. So yeah, there you go.
Who's been your role model?
Role model, eh? That's it's a tough one because I'd be remiss to say anyone but my dad, my dad Chris, has always been a huge role model and influence in my life. One of the more the best guys, the most fun guys out there. Super respectful, taught me how to be, a good, honest, kind, hardworking person. And I feel like those are kind of the qualities that go past, a specific industry or past a specific thing that you want to do, but kind of, impacts you for life in the right way. So, yeah, it would be tough to say anyone but my dad. He's super, super supportive, super proud. We're all young guys in the industry trying to make our way, and having, a system like that is always fantastic. So great role model, great guy, comes by the brewery every week. What can I say?
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic that you can't ask for a better role model than that. And that much support.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't it's a tough leap to make when you're with the folks you're trying to start a business with, and you all quit your jobs and go in 2 feet without people cheering you on and saying you're doing the right thing no matter what. Definitely made it a lot easier to commit and really give your full effort without looking back and thinking, what have I done?
What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. I would say some good advice I've received is just to, well, maybe I'll put it this way. So it was, again, something my dad said to me when I was a kid. And think of it like, so you're a kid and you're invited to a birthday party and you've committed to that. And that's something that, drink beer. Yeah, exactly. Drink beer, love life, or what have you. But you're supposed to go to this birthday party and then something cooler comes up. And then, you might want to switch to doing that other thing, but you've already committed to the first thing. And, it's not the right thing to do to leave people hanging when you've already committed. I say all this and just trying to say that, stick with it, stick with your commitments, like be a person of your word, and that will, show respect and go a long way in life. So, stick with your commitments, be confident in that, stay with your word and do what you say. And that's just a weird roundabout way of saying that, I suppose. But I do like in the chat, drink beer. I mean, that's a piece of advice we can use all the time.
Yeah, Derek makes that one every time.
I was misquoted. It's drink more beer.
Drink more beer.
Yeah. He also gets a pass for interrupting me in the show.
That's a collaborative show, is it not, right?
No, I don't give them that much freedom, Matt. Sorry. After the one show with Lauren, we didn't do that anymore. We'll talk about that afterwards.
The special status.
So Matt, if you could spend a day brewing beer or talking about beer with anybody, who would that be?
Oh man, that's crazy. Anybody brewing beer with them. I suppose they don't have to know how to brew beer, do they?
I don't know.
Not a brewer specific. I mean, imagine brewing a beer with Michael Jordan. That'd be pretty darn cool. That guy interests me beyond belief with his. I bet you'd think he'd be better at it too.
That's an interesting take.
No, I know. Well, there's folks that are in the beer industry that I'm sure people would love to brew beer with, but I think it would be interesting to have someone out of their element that's so an interesting person and an interesting standpoint, and showing them the ropes on brewing beer and having a good time that way, because those can be some of the best days when you see someone their first time. There's something special about a brewery, I think we all know, and the first time I ever entered a proper commercial brewery and saw what people are doing, it's awesome, it's cool, it creates passion, it creates something special. So bringing someone in to our world, I think would be fun. Someone of that stature, anyway.
You know what? I hear what you're saying on that. I think it would be fun. So.
Yeah.
What's the funniest beer story you have?
The funniest beer story I have. So it's funny that Derek mentioned he had a slice hop earlier this evening, because my funniest beer story is much along the same lines, but I'd say a little bit worse. So I was working at Collective Arts at the time. I was the sales rep for the Tri-City area. We had made an Imperial Blueberry Sour. It was in the 7 to 8% range. It ended up being a beer that re-fermented, had to be recalled, but at the time we didn't know that. I had some samples in my car. This was just a lapse of judgment. I had some samples in my car there in the back seat. I forgot they were there. I parked my car in a lot with no tree coverage in Waterloo, and it was the day of the tray races at Ethel's. So we went over to the tray races at Ethel's and had a great time and had a laugh. And it was a really hot day. Went to the White Rabbit after and chilled out and had a good time. A couple hours had gone by for sure, and get back to the car. And unfortunately, these re-fermented blueberry sours had blown up full force, top torn off in the car, entire car on the inside, still the same car I have today, covered in blueberry sour. So not a good scene. Looked like someone murdered the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka in there or something like that. So yeah, I'm in there. I'm like, shit. Well, what are you gonna do? I have a couple chamois in the trunk, so try and wipe up as much as possible. But you know, get rid of the cans. Hope to not run into a ride program. Although I had been DDing that day and there was no issues. The car smelling of alcoholic fruit juice is probably not the best place to start for sure. But made it home, had the windows all the way down, just trying to air out the car. I was going to clean it up the next day because it was late by that time and I was just kind of over it. So turns out I had forgotten that my back window was still probably about 3 inches open. I hadn't closed it all the way down. At the time I was living in an apartment. I was parked in a parking garage, go up, go to bed, blah, blah, blah. Next day, come down to the car. Well, my car had been infiltrated by 1,000 flies and mosquitoes through the crack in the window, and had called my car home that night. And then, open up the door, try and get them out of there, clean it up properly. But it was a good 2 weeks of little meow by the ear when driving for quite some time. So the funniest beer story, maybe, but the most unfortunate beer story for sure.
I'm laughing because I can picture every piece of that happening.
Oh yeah, it's it's vivid. Yeah, it's exactly that way. So ever since then, I haven't trusted a can of fruited sour as far as I don't know, I can roll it, I guess.
I can well imagine why you wouldn't.
Although leaving a 4-pack of Imperial Blueberry in the back of a black leather car during the tray races in mid-August is probably not the smartest idea, but you know,
those things happen when you're having fun.
don't make mistakes.
Certainly do. What would you like all of us to take away from this conversation tonight?
Aside from the laughs and the beer tasting, and I hope everyone enjoys the beer. And there's plenty more, like I said, things at the brewery and things to try from us in general. But I think, you know, what else do you say at a time like this in the first or second week of the lockdown that we have is just to support the local breweries. I know you're the folks that all do, and it's probably beating a dead horse at this point, but the amount that matters to whatever brewery you might order home delivery from, or you might walk into and get a 4-pack or whatever it may be, or leave a positive review or you know, message them on social media or whatever it may be. All those little things matter more than you know. You know, for a small startup brewery like us, or from someone that's, you know, trying to keep their staff alive and hired, you know, any small gesture now especially is worth a ton. And I know you're the type of folks that would be doing that anyway. But yeah, if we can always just, you know, remember how important the local breweries are, the work that goes into them, and any small gesture, you know, matters more than you know, then that's you know, important. So.
Matt, I want to thank you for giving us the gift of your time and sharing your story with us tonight. It's been a blast, and hope to see you in person in the future.
Absolutely. Oh my God, yes.
And remind everybody that Cam Fryer, Royal City, is going to join us next Tuesday, and possibly our good friend Keith Carmen will be there as well. Finally, again, Matt, thank you.